gone from the spire atop the Parliament building on the banks of the Danube River. To the competitors in the Formula One World Championship, Hungary has long been the land of opportunity. 12 months ago, Riccardo Patrese shocked the dominant McLaren team by putting his Williams on pole for only the third time in his career. Late in the race, Nigel Mansell slapped the pass of the season on defending world champion Ayrton Senna. Mansell's run from 12th to 1st for Ferrari made him the newest Hungarian hero. This year's surprise is Williams again, as a first-time pole sitter leads the field at the Hungaroring. ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Hungaroring on the Carpathian Plain, about 15 miles from downtown Budapest, is jam-packed to welcome the 5th running of the Formula One Grand Prix of Hungary. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha, welcoming you to Hungary, where much has changed since our last visit just 12 months ago. For example, you can buy a simple pair of American blue jeans in Budapest for about $60 if you can fight your way through the crowds and into the store. Some things have not changed. A complete dinner in Hungarian style with wine will set you back just about $15. But one thing that certainly has not changed is the Hungarian passion for their Grand Prix, the biggest event on the sporting calendar here. With me to call the action once again, our Formula One analyst, David Hobbs. And David, we're used to surprises here in Hungary, but Williams has really pulled one off this time.
Well, they certainly did, Bob. All Williams front row. And for the first time in his career, out of 115 starts, Thierry Boutsen sits on the pole. Must be celebrating the birth of young Kevin a couple of weeks back. As you can see from this footage yesterday afternoon, it was a pretty electrifying lap, but you can see that these guys are busy boys around here. Lots of corners and even more gear shifts, about 30 a lap. It's also extremely slippery. Now, all you guys who had volunteered to drive a McLaren as the only Formula One car worth driving better just sit down again for a minute after yesterday afternoon's qualifying. Ayrton Senna had a very lurid slide on his second qualifying run, slowed the pace down, did another slow lap, warmed his tyres up, shot off again and got to the chicane this time before he locked everything up and disappeared in a huge cloud of smoke. Well, not to be outdone, Gerhard Berger just didn't bother to apply the brakes at all. Just a few moments later at the same spot, and that put him out of the running for pole position too, so McLaren's on the second row. The circuit here is extremely slippery and, as I've said, very arduous, and I think we're going to see an awful lot of action this afternoon.
Slippery indeed. John Bizignano will be with us in a moment to tell us about last adjustments to these cars after a morning warm-up session that saw them flying off in every direction. Here's a look at the points coming in the Drivers' Championship. It's a two-man battle between Senna and his arch-rival and former teammate Alain Prost, just 4 points apart. Gerhard Berger a distant third. In the Manufacturers' Championship, all McLaren and Ferrari. Drivers can count only their best 11 finishes out of 16 races, but the manufacturers can count each finish for each car, and that battle should go all the way down to the final event of the season in Australia. On the west bank of the Danube River, giving a beautiful view of downtown Budapest, stands Gellert Hill. And on Gellert Hill is the Liberation Monument, honoring the soldiers of the Russian Army during World War II. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of Hungary is brought to you by Acura Automobiles. Experience precision-crafted performance. By your local independent ERA real estate specialist. And by Mobil. Drive your engine clean with Mobil Super Unleaded Plus. We'll be back to introduce the starting grid for round 10 of the 1990 World Championship when we return to Budapest, Hungary. Struck to bring back the Hungarian Grand Prix for another 5 years. The cars are ready to go, so let's take a look at the way they'll line up for round 10 of the World Championship. On the pole for the first time in his career, just 2 weeks after setting his first fast lap ever, the Williams Renault of Thierry Boutsen of Belgium. Next to him on row 1, the other Williams Renault, Italy's Riccardo Patrese, the first all-Williams front row since 1987. On row 2, Gerhard Berger of Austria and the McLaren Honda, third in points and the only man not to improve in second-round qualifying. Next to him, Ayrton Senna of Brazil, the 88th world champion, leading in the points by 4 coming in. On row 3, Nigel Mansell, just turned 37 last Wednesday, from Great Britain, driving the Ferrari. Next to him, Jean Alesi of France, in the Tyrrell, a man we've become so familiar with, starting only his 18th Grand Prix race. On row 4, Sandro Nannini of Italy in the Benetton, the surprise runner-up at Germany 2 weeks ago. Next to him, Alain Prost of France, second in points, fastest in the morning warm-up in the Ferrari by nearly a second. On row 5, Nelson Piquet, who will turn 38 next Friday from Brazil, driving the Benetton. And next to him from Italy, Andrea De Cesaris, a surprise number 10 qualifier in the Dallara Ford. On row 6 from Great Britain, Derek Warwick in the Lotus Lamborghini, who it is announced has lost its Camel sponsorship for next year. Next to him, Frenchman Eric Bernard in the LaRousse with Lamborghini power, very slow in the morning warm-ups. On row 7, Emanuele Pirro of Italy in the second Dallara, next to Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi. On row 8, Satoru Nakajima in the Tyrrell, next to the Leighton House Judd of Ivan Capelli of Italy. On row 9, Maurizio Guglielmin of Brazil in the second Leighton House, next to the second Lotus of Great Britain's Martin Donnelly. On row 10, Aguri Suzuki of Japan in the second LaRousse car, next to the Brabham Judd of Stefano Modena of Italy. Row 11, Philippe Ayot of France in the Ligier, next to the Arrows of Michele Alboreto of Italy. Row 12, all-Italian, Paolo Barilla in the Minardi, next to the AGS of Gabriele Tarquini. Row 13, another pair of Italians, Nicola Larini in the Ligier, next to the Arrows of Alex Caffey. Those who missed the cut include Yannick Dalmas of France in the AGS, the second Brabham of David Brabham from Australia, J.J. Leto and Gregor Wojtek in the Monteverdi cars as well. Those who failed to pre-qualify on Friday morning, Olivier Griard of France in the Osella, the Coloni of Bertrand Gachot of Belgium, Roberto Moreno of Brazil, and Claudio Langes of Italy in the Eurobroom cars, and the Life Machine of Bruno Giacomelli of Italy. David, how about a closer look at this racetrack that you've been studying so assiduously all weekend?
Well, of course, the course here sits in a natural amphitheater, so it's great for spectators, and it also gives the course itself quite a bit of elevation change. There's 15 corners packed into this 2.46-mile track, so there's a lot of direction change and about 30 gear shifts per lap. Overtaking, as you can see from that little map, is going to be extremely difficult this afternoon, so a good grid position is essential. And the average speed is not very high. The fastest lap last year, which is almost certain to get broken today, is only 107 miles an hour.
Certainly a great change from what they saw 2 weeks ago in Germany and what's coming 2 weeks from now in Belgium. Weather conditions these drivers will face, very warm, 84 degrees and getting hotter, 70% humidity. That will sap the drivers even more. Just a 20% chance of rain, none really. The wind about 5 miles an hour and blowing in the drivers' faces as they make their way up the pit straightaway. We'll be back to hear from John Bizignano on the final adjustments to these cars and get ready for the green light in round 10 of the 1990 World Championship. Stay with us. Where the engines have fired, 26 starters about to roll off as we prepare for the beginning of the 10th round of the 1990 World Championship. There you see the cars on the grid. Bob Barsha and David Hobbs with you live from the Hungaroring, along with John Bizignano. We'll be covering the pit lane, and there you see the machines beginning to roll off. We will have 2 onboard cameras, rather cameras on 2 teams in this race, and we couldn't ask for a better choice. They will be on the Williams cars of our front row sitters, Terry Boutsen and Riccardo Patrese, and we will also have cameras in the Ferraris today. And keep in mind that Alain Prost is starting from well back in the field in the number 8 spot outside on the front row. Let's get down to John now for a quick update on where everybody stands as we await the green light.
Thank you very much, Bobby. A lot of action, actually, both in the pit lane and on the grid itself. Some people in trouble. The Williams, the Boutsen car has had a new brake job all the way around and a new setup. Boutsen was not happy even with being fastest. He's still trying to tune that suspension in just a little bit more. Patrese should be okay. Gerhard Berger is okay. They have a way at Ferrari, if everything's okay, don't touch it. Everything was very relaxed in the Ferrari pit, but Ayrton Senna is in the spare car. He went out on the warm-up lap to start this Grand Prix, and the radiator cracked open, bursting water everywhere. Thank God it happened then. He is in the spare car. Somewhat of an uncomfortable feeling, I'm sure, for the Brazilian. Piquet, very difficult problems too. The clutch went out. They did not put in a new clutch. They repaired the clutch that was in the car in 4 minutes. Then they had to bleed the clutch out on the grid. I'm sure it is a bit of a strange pedal to him. Nannini's okay, except they had to replace left side suspension after this morning's warm-up. So many people off the track here, as you have been told. Tyrrell, both cars having brake problems, at least 2 spins, 2 serious spins down to brake problems. Ferrari, as we said, are okay. Arrows, Alboreto, he is having gear selection problems. Let's hope they have fixed that. Now, one thing that no one has mentioned yet is that here in the Hungaroring, the cars are loaded with fuel, 50 to 60 U.S. gallons. That can be 300 to 360 pounds of weight. Now, the cars, they have not run full tanks as much as they've wanted to. That's why we don't really know if there's going to be tire stocks. I certainly hope so, because this is one heck of a good pit. A lot of Hungarian action.
All right, thank you, John. You never want to have brake problems anywhere in a Formula One car, but least of all on a circuit like the Hungaroring. The cars are very, very heavy on brakes.
Well, they are and they aren't. There's a couple of very, very heavy braking spots. Otherwise, there's just a lot of brakes, but not very hard application, if you know what I mean. Use the brakes a lot, but not terribly, terribly hard.
You see the cars there all checking their clutches and drive lines by slowing down and then spinning the rear wheels. One last extra degree or two of temperature. Now, once again this week, we will lay out during the opening lap and allow you to call your own Formula One race. Your pole sitter is to the right of your screen, and that's a change. Normally he's on the left. Terry Boutsen really has the best line. Ricardo Patrese will not. That left side of the track is very dirty. Right now, get ready for the unmuffled shriek of almost 6,000 gas-fired explosions per second as the field pulls to the grid. The red light will flash. Within 4 seconds, the green light will flash, and we'll be on our way. Have fun. We'll see you at the end of the first lap. First lap, Terry Boutsen moved over on his teammate at the start of the race, and that allowed Gerhard Berger in the red and white McLaren to sneak through, followed by Terry Boutsen, and is that Alain Prost moved up that far?
And right behind Berger, of course, is Patrese in the second one of those Williams cars, started from the front row. That looks like Nigel Mansell there in the Ferrari, and John Alesi is right behind him. John Alesi, a lot of people are worried about him because the Pirelli qualifiers are better than the Pirelli race tires, and they're a bit worried that he may hold up some of these guys. He's got in front, in fact, of Ayrton Senna there at the grid, so Senna won't be too happy with that. But Thierry has managed to put a lot of daylight between himself and Gerhard Berger on that first lap. Thierry definitely was not going to be denied here. Started from the outside, and obviously the first thing he did was to move over. There we see Philippe Alliot, number 26, the Ligier, come into the pits at the end of the first lap. Disappointing for him.
He started from the 21 spot, the first pit on the first lap. Meanwhile, Terry Boutsen opening up a huge lead. It is Boutsen, Berger, Patrese, Mansell. Jean Alesi moved up very well, followed by Ayrton Senna, who dropped back. Andre de Cesaris, Sandro Nannini, Nelson Piquet, and Alain Prost, who has also dropped back. That fills out the top 10. A comment from John Bizignano in the pits. A little problem with John's microphone, but I think we have it rectified now. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, Bobby, as the cars come right by the start-finish line for the second time, Philippe Alliot had a right front damaged wing. He definitely made contact with one of the other competitors. They changed the nose quickly. He's back out on the track.
Tire smoke as they went into that first corner. A lot of tire smoke. And apparently Philippe Alliot fell victim to contact. There was the number 4 of Jean Alesi, who has been a very unhappy man this weekend. He has been off the racetrack more than on, including 2 spins in the morning warm-up.
He went extremely well on Friday in both the practice and the qualifying. He was on the pole there for the first 45 minutes of Friday afternoon session and finally ended up 3rd on Friday. And yesterday morning they made some major changes to the car, and he was very upset after yesterday morning's practice, and they obviously changed it back for yesterday's qualifying, but he still ended up only 6th or 7th.
With 7 races to go in the 1990 season, including the Hungarian Grand Prix here today, you're watching live. It's probably a bit too early to get concerned about points, but many of the drivers in this field are concerned about their destinations next year, and one of those is Terry Boutsen, the man on point. He has not signed a contract for next year. He would very much like to stay with the team he is with. The common wisdom in the pit lane says he will not be allowed to do that, but right now he is on pole and leading this race. If he could pick up a victory today, it would make Frank Williams' job very difficult to get rid of him.
Well,
now let's take a look at the course. Take us around, David.
There we see them going to turn 1. As you can see, it's a downhill corner, and it goes down all the way around this long 3rd gear corner. A quick burst of acceleration out of there, still going downhill, up to 4th, then back to 3rd for this turn 2. Again, as you can see, a lot of downhill. Now that downhill, of course, means adverse camber on those corners. There you see the right flick at the top of your picture, taking the 4th, up to 6th. Then through this, now we come to the right-hander, which is turn 4. A long 4th gear corner, accelerating all the way through there and up to the first of these chicanes, probably taken in 2nd, maybe even 1st gear. Up to 3rd here, and then all these corners now, the right, the left, then the next right, they're all quicker than the one before. They pick up speed all the way along here till they come to this 2nd chicane, which is a much quicker one. Here we are coming up to it now, 3rd gear, pretty quick flick through there, probably 100, 110 miles an hour. Up to 5th gear again as they come into this last 2nd gear left-hander, another fairly long corner. Accelerate up here, slip it up to 3rd gear, stay in 3rd for this long right-hander, back onto the pit straight. And this corner, of course, rises all the way through there, going uphill all the way along there, and finally crest the peak of the hill right at the start-finish line, which they cross at only about 150 miles an hour. This is a relatively slow speed course. Nigel Mansell now starting to put a bit of pressure on Riccardo Patrese there. But both of them pulling out quite a gap on John Alesi. This is what a lot of people are a bit frightened of. I'm sure that if Senna could get round Alesi, he would pull out on him. But it's easier said than done here. And meanwhile, Senna himself is falling back into the clutches of Nannini there in the first of the Benetton Ford.
Senna started in the 4th position, faded to 8th in the early going, no doubt because of worries about that spare car he's driving. He is now back up into 6th, chasing Jean Alesi. But as David has mentioned, Alesi not expected to be quite as fast on those Pirelli race tires, so Senna really has a problem in the early laps.
Needs to get around him as soon as he possibly can. And those 3 themselves have pulled out quite a substantial gap. The Cesaris lies behind Nannini, but he's 3.5 seconds back, nearly 4 seconds back in fact. And he in turn is also on Pirellis. He may well be following up the train of cars behind him, who are all over each other like a real cheap suit. Only just points of a second separated the Cesaris back to Derek Warwick, who's in 11th spot. So there's a lot of racing going on lots of different parts of the track. There you saw Alesi having a bit of a struggle as he went on that long left-hander. Berger and Thierry there maintaining about that same gap. Thierry maintaining quite a healthy 1.5 second lead.
It is Boutsen, Berger, Patrese, Mansell, Alesi, Senna, Nannini, De Cesaris running well, Piquet, Prost in the top 10. I'm a little surprised that Alain Prost has not moved up much.
Now there was a bit of talk. I spoke to Lee Gobb just before the race on these drivers' choice of tyres, and it was all somewhat shrouded in mystery. He thought that Alain Prost might try the new D compound, which is softer than the C, as he was starting well back and would be naturally held up by the traffic around him and would not run the tyres off his car. Nannini now, as we just saw there, started to give Senna a very hard time. Now we're not seeing it, but never mind. Trust me, it is.
Once again, we're taking an international feed, this time coming from Hungarian television, Magyar Televizia. Your leader is Terry Boutsen, followed by Berger, Patrese, Mansell, Alesi. Senna leads the second leaderboard for the first time in a long time. We'll be right back. You're back live at the Hungaroring in the Magyarország Nagydíj. With apologies to everyone out there who understands Hungarian, I think that means Hungarian Grand Prix. We are watching the battle for 5th place in the race. Jean Alesi just put a wheel off on the backside of the racetrack. He is about to be caught up by Ayrton Senna running in 6th position. Sandro Nannini right there in 7th in the Benetton.
Alesi now really stretching himself. This car is all over the road, and Senna is going to be very anxious to get around him because it's forced him back into the unwanted clutches of Nannini, who in just a moment you'll see is extremely fast through not this little section here, but they go up this long uphill straight here, then they come to this left, this right, and a left flip, and through here and into the next corner. Nannini is absolute dynamite, and he catches right up with the... Look at that there. He catches right up with Senna there.
And
meanwhile, Alesi is struggling there, but here, he's horrible. And they catch him up again.
Finding the balance that you need to make a Formula One car go quickly has really been a problem this weekend for many of the teams.
Now we're back with the leaders again. Thierry Boutsen still got a fairly good lead over Berger, who in turn is still well in front of Patrese, and Nigel Mansell hovering right there in 4th spot.
John Bizignano has a comment from the pit lane about the race rubber.
Well, we've gotten the latest information from Goodyear. Gugelmin and Donnelly are on the very, very soft G-type compound. They hope for it to go the distance. No pit stop planned. Everyone else with Goodyears are on the medium soft Cs, and again, no pit stops planned. As far as the Pirelli boys, Tyrrell is on the very soft 88 compound, and everyone else is on the medium soft 96. So we do have a little bit of disagreement upon the teams. What's the fastest way to go, but who can go the distance is the real question.
And it is hot today. And of course the sun is out, it's very bright as you can see, warming that track up, and of course that makes a tremendous difference. If it's 90 degrees but cloudy, it's an awful lot different to 90 degrees in strong sunshine, and that makes a difference on their tyre choice as well. But there we see Thierry Boutsen, who apparently opted for the C's, a slightly more conservative route. Would rather run reasonably fast but not stop than run extremely fast and run his tyres off his car. Maintaining a pretty nice cushion over Gerhard Berger, but of course there's an awful long way to go yet in this Hungarian Grand Prix. Patrese hanging right in there. Nigel Mansell's actually dropped about 5 seconds behind those two guys now. And they're all running laps, still running laps in the low 25s, high 24s, compared to this morning's warm-up best time, Alan Prost, the 1:21, and of course qualifying yesterday afternoon, the 1:17.9. But they will pick up speed as the afternoon wears on, and of course their tyre load goes down, and this track gains more grip. As it's not used very much, this track does speed up as the weekend goes on. They get here on Friday morning and they're all pretty slow, and then as the weekend goes on, they definitely pick up speed. And here's a guy that everybody's going to want to get around, John Alesi, who's absolutely undoubtedly holding Ayrton Senna up there. Which, good for us viewers, because it means that Piquet and Prost and even young Warwick there, young Warwick, what a joke, are starting to catch up with us. Sorry, Derek.
Younger than you are. We have had a change in the top 10. Alain Prost has gotten around Andrea de Cesaris for 9th place, so it is Piquet with Prost just behind him in the red Ferrari. But this man on point. What a summer it's been for Terry Boutsen. Just turned 33 back in July, just a few days before his first child, son Kevin, was born. And now he is leading the Grand Prix of Hungary, looking for that, well, not his first victory, but looking for the victory that might well have a great say in his destiny next year.
Thierry, of course, has got 2 Grand Prix wins to his credit, both in the wet, which is always reckoned to be a bit of a hallmark for a driver. One of them, he was certainly a touch lucky. Montreal last year, Patrese seemed to be quicker than him. He was just a little bit lucky, but on the other hand, most drivers, me included, I guess, will take a win anyhow it comes. And if that's what it takes, that's what you'll take. And it would be lovely to see him this afternoon put one over the establishment, well and truly. But as you say, it would make life especially difficult for Frank Williams.
There is a look back at the gap to Jean Alesi. But he doesn't appear to be holding up Senna. Senna doesn't get within 3 car lengths of him.
Well, he closes up and drops back rather like a concertina. Whoa, there is
Satoru Nakajima. Satoru Nakajima of Japan, the Japanese driver, is off. Meanwhile, Boutsen is up front.
Lots of Japanese television sets will be going now off.
Well, Aguri Suzuki is still out there. He's in 19th position right now. We'll give you the second 10 in just a moment. The numbers favor Terry Boutsen. He has only retired once in 4 attempts here at the Hungarian Grand Prix. The best finishing record, as we take another look at what happened to Suzuki, you see he just skated straight off at that corner and then backed it into the tire wall. That wasn't his
Well, he actually sort of drove it into the tire wall, which is even less clever. But that did give you an idea when you saw that replay of just how slick this surface is. We've seen a lot of very similar incidents that all over the weekend, and you and I went for that walk around the circuit on Friday morning, and we saw some lurid slides on a number of occasions from an awful lot of cars. This surface, I don't know whether it's the asphalt, the type of asphalt, and the fact that it's not used much, of course, doesn't help. But these cars have all been really struggling for grip.
Next time we come by the start-finish line, take a look at the wheel marks on the starting grid. You'll see the left side at the top of your picture are absolutely black with tire marks, where the right side, where the racing line is much cleaner. There's Riccardo Patrese making his way around with Englishman Nigel Mansell just behind. Both Ferraris using the latest development of their V12 engine. Supposedly, they were going to put that engine only in Nigel's car and make Alain Prost, the points leader for that team, use the more conservative, older version of the engine, but they decided to go with the new V12 in both of these Ferraris.
Well, if the race ended right now, to use a favorite expression of various people, we wouldn't see a great deal of change in the championship positions except for our current leader, Thierry Boutsen, and the guy who's running second. It certainly wouldn't help Alain Prost to stop now, and it wouldn't help Ayrton Senna much either, because he would only pick up 1 measly point.
Of the 11 drivers who have competed in all 4 Hungarian Grand Prix to date, only one has finished all 4, Ayrton Senna, and he has never been worse than second.
Mansell's starting to make a bit of a move now. He's cut that gap down from himself to Patrese very considerably, and I'm sure that in just a few laps we're going to see him make a move to get around that car.
It is Boutsen, Berger, Patrese, Nigel Mansell closing in less than a second behind Patrese, a 7.5-second gap back to Jean Alesi in 5th, followed by Ayrton Senna in the final points-paying position. Stay with us.
My favorite is a Porsche, not because the next year we have a Porsche engine, but really it's, when I was a kid, my passion, my favorite car was a Porsche.
BMW. I like the M5. I have an M5, and I'm expecting to drive now the new 850. So I'm really excited.
But I loved my BMW M5. I loved the Mercedes, the 500. I just was driven in a Porsche 928, but I think was very nice. And of course, the favorite car is the Ferrari F40.
I haven't driven actually that many nice cars. I'd have to say that the new Mercedes 500 SL does look the business to me.
I think the Mercedes is a very good car because it's very comfortable. You have a lot of security inside. But personally, I drive a Mercedes and a Saab car. Oh, I haven't this favorite street car.
Well, I don't drive any of those. Of course, they can't afford to. The battle on the racetrack at the Hungarian Grand Prix right now is for 3rd place between Riccardo Patrese in the Williams and Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari right there. While we watch this battle for 3rd once again, let's get a comment from John Bisognano in the pit lane.
Bob, as you have commented, Ayrton Senna cannot get around John Alesi, something that he would normally be able to do with ease. We asked McLaren, is there a problem? They just say he feels uncomfortable in the car. David, when I was racing, I didn't have any spare cars. I'm sure you had to jump into a few without many laps. How hard is it to go from a spare car and try and make it a racer?
I've never had a spare car either. The teams I used to drive...
Low budget racing here, us ESPN
they
boys.
couldn't afford spare cars.
Well, it must be terribly unsettling.
I think unless you've set the car up, it must be absolutely the most diabolical feeling to go through all that warm-up even on race morning and then have to get into a completely strange car. I know I wouldn't like it at all, but I suppose he's just going to have to adapt as best he can, but it must be extremely difficult.
Your leader with 14, make that 15 laps now complete, is Thierry Boutsen of Belgium in the Williams, followed by Gerhard Berger, Riccardo Patrese, Nigel Mansell running in the 4th position, now 1.1 seconds. I'll make that less than that, as you can see from the TV screens, in 4th position, followed by Jean Alesi, now 7.5 seconds back. Ayrton Senna just behind him. Sandro Nannini runs in 7th, followed by Nelson Piquet in 8th, and Alain Prost in 9th. You are now on board with Riccardo Patrese running in 3rd spot.
We have to apologize. That was going through the turn 4 complex, and this is that long, long right-hander, 4th gear, up to 5th, then hard on the brakes down to the chicane. Listen to the engine noise. Looks easy, doesn't it?
Riccardo Patrese led 53 laps of this race last year before he had a punctured radiator and the engine finally let go. A terrible disappointment for him, but right now Williams is looking extra good here today in Hungary. Thierry Boutsen runs on the point, followed by this man, Riccardo Patrese, in 3rd.
This is that very fast right-hander. Now we start to go uphill in 6th gear. Looks like he was quick down to 5th for this very fast left-hand flick. Then back to 4th, this long right-hander. A lot of these corners have horrible adverse camber. As they come into the chicane, it's obviously extremely slippery, and even that one just falls off a little bit on the entry. Then leave those corners, they go up to 3rd. This one's the slowest one, the left-hander. Then this one's a bit quicker, this right-hander. They start to pick up here and go up to 5th, 4th, 5th. Very fast left-hand sweep. Stay in 5th round this right-hander. Down to 3rd for this one. He goes up to 4th. Back down to 2nd here, I believe.
Now we also have cameras on board the Ferraris, and we'll get to them just a little bit later, including, I hope we get it, a look out the back of Alain Prost's car. Now overtaking Alioz Ligier now that he's back on the racetrack. Gerhard Berger making quick work of him there, and that was a dangerous move, just flicking around him at the end of the front straightaway.
Gerhard Berger closing that gap, only half a second now behind Thierry Boutsen. He was about 1.5 seconds. This gap obviously will fluctuate a little bit, especially now they're in traffic, but even so, Mansell coming up to that place where he did that death-defying move last year over Senna. Thought he was having a bit of a second thought about doing it to Patrese then. Into that long right-hander. This is the 4th gear. Closes up a little bit there. Alesi and Senna maintaining about a 6-second gap back to the Ferrari of Mansell. Here we are back into Fraser's car. Now he's got to get around Philippe Alliot, and they've got into the very twisty part of the circuit. And that makes life a lot more difficult for him. And this will put him back into the clutches of Nigel Mansell even more.
We gave you the top 10. Derek Warwick is now 10th, having gotten around Andre De Cesaris. The second 10 are De Cesaris, Eric Bernard in the LaRousse car, Pierluigi Martini, who has been something of a disappointment in the second half thus far. He was one of the quick ones early in the season. Ivan Capelli runs in 14th in the Leighton House, followed by Emanuele Duro, Mauricio Gugelmin, Martin Donnelly, Aguri Suzuki, Alex Caffey, and Michele Alboreto.
There we see Thierry going round the outside of the inside, rather, Paolo Barilla, and Berger again follows him through. That one was even further into the corner than the first one.
Berger is not about to let go of Thierry Boutsen.
Well, the absolute last thing, the worst thing that could happen to him here is to get a lapped car between himself and Thierry Boutsen. That could open the gap 2 or 3 seconds just in half a lap or so.
The battle continues here at the Hungaroring, just about 15 miles from downtown Budapest. You're watching live, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Budapest. Here's a look at the Chain Bridge, built by a couple of Englishmen back in the 1900s. That bridge has been the focus of a controversy here during the weekend of the Hungarian Grand Prix. One of the big tobacco companies that has a lot of sponsorship has lined that bridge with their flags, and a lot of the native Budapestians are not happy with that. Coming up later this afternoon, live from Watkins Glen International Circuit in upstate New York, the Budweiser at the Glen at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Dale Earnhardt is on the pole, but I hear Sal Vandermerve is going to drive for the injured Darrell Waltrip. That ought to be interesting. Bob Jenkins, Ned Jarrett, Benny Parsons, and the whole gang will be there to bring you the Budweiser at the Glen, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, live here on ESPN. Here at the Hungaroring, we have 20 laps complete of a scheduled 77. Your leader is Thierry Boutsen, who had led from pole. Here is Nigel Mansell making an attempt on Jean Alesi. Excuse me, Nigel Mansell. I heard Senna.
Senna, his name is.
Yeah, Senna,
Mansell's
right.
in the red car.
That's right.
This is red and white.
They're close friends, but I always get them mixed up. Senna making his way around Alesi, which he's been trying to do from the very start of this race. And this may be just the beginning of a lot of passing to come, David.
It may be. John Bisignano just brought out an extremely good point, that these guys started with probably as much fuel as they could cram into these cars. It is a very, they use a lot of fuel on this circuit. So the cars started a bit on the heavy side, and he wondered if maybe people like Senna were just driving a little bit cannily to start with to make sure that their tires were not run off their cars too soon with that extra weight carrying. Extra weight they're carrying here.
Well, just past the 1/3 way in this race, pretty shortly. If anybody has some room to move, they're going to start making it up. There is Thierry Boutsen, your leader. Right behind him, Gerhard Berger, and there are just zillions of Austrian fans here today. Gerhard Berger's father is here cheering for him. There's a group of about 30 of them in the stands wearing white T-shirts, and everybody has a different letter on their shirt. When they stand up, it says something like Austrians for Gerhard Berger, so they really had to get that one organized. Like a waving cards section at a UCLA football game.
Well, Gerhard and Thierry Boutsen seem to be very evenly matched. Nigel Mansell has failed to capitalize on that close encounter he had with the crazy drop back, but that may have been some traffic that we didn't see. I mean, we only see the pictures that you see, and obviously when they get mixed up in traffic.
Let me explain why I put Mansell in Senna's car before. The hot rumor here this weekend in Hungary was that Mansell has an offer from McLaren. Mansell, who said he will retire this year, has been very coy about that. In a press conference put together by his team, Mansell was asked explicitly about reconsidering, and all he did was smile.
But his wife has said that she doesn't want him to go back to racing, which translated means over my dead body he'll drive for them.
And of course, Ron Dennis, who manages the McLaren team, and Nigel Mansell have not been the closest of friends over the years.
The other hot rumor I heard at the luncheon table was that Marlboro and McLaren were giving Ayrton Senna a major... Ooh, now this is a trip. Lap traffic.
Gabriele Tarquini in the AGS holding up Thierry Boutsen.
Badly.
And here comes Berger, who's going to take a look. Boy, no place to pass here. But on the straightaway could be something different.
But Berger's a brave boy. I mean, he could blast by them both here without... If Thierry is the least bit lax.
This is Mansell. We don't want to see this. We want to see the battle up front. Here we go. Now, Tarquini should get over to the left of your screen. He's not likely to do it here because it's very, very dirty in that part of the track, and a lot of the drivers have not been moving over for one another because it takes some 2 laps to get all of the dirt back off your tires.
That is a major problem. There's a problem in qualifying as well. Tarquini finally pulls offline, and it'll take him a couple laps to get back to speed. Unfortunately, he moves back online right in front of Nigel.
And Senna is in the pits. A McLaren pit stop. John Bisignano is there.
Ayrton Senna from Brazil comes into his stopping position. They were practicing this earlier. A big problem with the left rear. They keep having that air gun rattle away and nothing happening. Again, a little bit of problem with the left rear, and I believe that was the wheel nut that Mansell lost this lead on about 4 or 5, maybe 4 years ago when the left rear wheel came flying off down the straightaway. They are looking at the wheel, and we'll get you an exact report as why there is a problem.
Well, having, there we see, is that Alio or
That's Philippe Alliot off again. His second spin off, and that's at a very, very fast left-hand flick. Yeah, the 26 car is Alliot.
Not having a good day, is Phil.
And not a great idea getting up. Well, no car's coming, so he's okay. Cars have been going off, and it is so dry here in Hungary, they've been setting fire to the newly mown grass. They nearly stopped the session during one of the early practice rounds when the infield caught fire here in Hungary.
Well, just before that action, I was telling you about Senna and his signing, and I believe that Ron Dennis and Marlborough are trying to present Senna with some sort of deadline to re-sign at the sort of money they want to pay him, and still some of the money that he is demanding. And I believe the story goes, if he doesn't sign, they'll just take a pass, at which point Williams will almost certainly take him up.
Replay, Evalio spin.
And as you say, that is the fastest corner here. Almost flat out in fifth gear, probably 135 to 140 mile an hour corner. Not the best place to go always.
That Nigel Mansell rumor tying in with McLaren may also be a ruse to light a fire under Mr. Senna. Because once a driver leaves a team, that really takes away his leverage in negotiations, especially when you're asking for $17 million.
You need a lot of leverage to get $17 million.
Senna stopped in 5th place. He drops back now to 10th as a result of that long tire stop. It is Terry Boutsen, followed by Gerhard Berger, the man right there in your picture. Riccardo Patrese still holding down 3rd for the Williams team, followed by Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari. Jean Alesi now back up to 5th after Senna's stop. Sandro Nannini now in 6th, followed by his teammate Nelson Piquet, who's come up now to 7th. Alain Prost is in 8th. Derek Warwick still in 9th. 10th, Ayrton Senna.
10th, and he's about 40 seconds now behind the leader. And that is a bit unlike Ayrton Senna to make a mistake on this tyre business. He usually is very, very good on getting his tyre compounds right and seeing it through to the end. However, if, as John pointed out, the car was very heavy to start with, and he was having a bit of a problem with his handling, which he was unaware of because it's the first time he's driven the car, that may not have helped his calculations at all.
I have to apologize for the problems there.
It's a shame because all day Friday and Saturday, the in-cars were just a treat. Yesterday's qualifying with Thierry was absolutely superb, and it was a shame that it's not working so well today, but that is typical.
We can learn more now about why Ayrton Senna stopped. Let's get back to John in the pit lane.
Bob, this is what we call a flat spot. Ayrton Senna, in trying to get around Alesi, he flat spotted this tire, and this caused an imbalance. The car becomes virtually undrivable. I just want to ask Lee Gogg, you have been looking at this tire as far as wear goes. What's your prediction now for the rest of the people out there on your C compound?
I don't think we've changed it. We don't expect to stop from wear unless somebody spins out, does something unusual.
Well, we always like a little bit more action in the pit lane. Lee, you're building these tires a little bit too tough. Grip here on this slippery circuit a problem?
Yes, it's always a problem, but I think we've got enough grip. It's just that these people have trouble getting by a slower car in the front. I think maybe that's what Senna's problem was.
Well, Ayrton Senna tried very hard, and it cost him a pit stop.
25 laps are now in the book of 77 scheduled. It is Terry Boutsen leading Gerhard Berger, Riccardo Patrese, Nigel Mansell, and Sandro Nannini. We'll take a quick time out and return live to Budapest, Hungary in just a moment.
Is blue and yellow, and that was the Swedish color, because when I was young, my favorite driver was Ronnie Peterson, and I have the lucky to meet him also. I was a good friend, and I keep this color for my career.
Well, there you see the end of the day in Hungary for Andrea De Cesaris, who had a great 10th place qualifying run, but he is now out of this event. Their leader is Terry Boutsen. Gerhard Berger has been in 2nd place from the start, followed by Riccardo Patrese and that man, Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari, who, remember, came from 12th to win this race a year ago.
Well, that little interview we had with Lee Gogg from Goodyear will be extremely bad news for Ayrton Senna, who has made a stop to change his tyres. If nobody else is figuring on stopping, he's going to have his work cut out to pull back from 10th spot at this stage in the race. Nearly 26 laps in. Obviously he's cutting down his time. There's Nigel Mansell right behind Patrese now.
Now we will leave the camera here with the clock on so that you can gauge the interval for yourself. We'll try to name the drivers for you. There comes Sandro Nannini, followed by Pierluigi Martini, who is a lap down at this point. There's a gap. There is Alain Prost now closing in on Alesi.
And of course, Nelson Piquet was just in front of those two.
Gabriele Tarquini, who was a lap down. That gives you an idea about how far apart the front runners. The man you did not see in that picture in 10th spot, Ayrton Senna, has reset fast lap of the race, a lap at 1:23.430. Almost a second faster than anyone else has run thus far.
And his last lap, this was a 23.7 compared to our leaders 24.8, Berger's 24.8, Mansell 24.3. So Senna consistently lapping quicker than anybody else, but long way to go. Mind you, he's cut the gap from himself to Warwick down from 10 seconds to 3 seconds in just 2 laps.
Nigel Mansell once again closing in on the yellow and blue Williams of Ricardo Patrese for 3rd place. Gerhard Berger closing in on Terry Boutsen on point.
And about to lap, who was that? Was that a Brabham?
Who's that got up in front of our camera?
Nigel, yes, one of the Brabhams. That must be Stefano Modena. It's not one of the Brabhams, there's only one Brabham in it. So that's Stefano Modena about to be put down. And of course it depends where they catch him.
A train of slower cars coming down the hill. Here comes the Brabham of Stefano Modena. Right behind him, your leader, Terry Boutsen. Gerhard Berger will be watching. I believe Modena got offline a little bit there to let them through. He did.
Made a lot of room. A lot of room.
Let's get more on the situation with Ayrton Senna. How about it, John Bisignano?
Well, Bob, the thing is why Ayrton Senna is going so quickly now. He has brand new, fresh C-type compound tires, and he's out there with a third of the fuel load. So he is going to be flying. Is there enough time? Well, only he knows, or only he thinks he knows at the moment. Now, we may have done him a little bit of injustice on locking up that right front. The left rear wheel was broken inside the hub, and the wheel was going flat. So obviously it's going to throw the car back on the left rear and up on the right front. He may have flat-spotted that front tire trying to get around Alesi, or it may have been caused of the imbalance of the chassis with the flattening left rear. Anyway, the mistake was that something broke. He had to come in and spend a lot of time in the pits to get it fixed.
And he is now in 10th spot on the racetrack behind Derek Warwick, Alain Prost, and Alesi. The man who he was originally trying to get around is up in 7th.
That may also explain why his performance seemed to be just a little bit off the pace early on. If that wheel cracked and was letting air out slowly out of that tire, it's one of those things that can be very confusing from the driver's point of view.
Same problem he had in Imola, where he went off the racetrack on the 2nd lap, and it turned out to be a broken wheel on the McLarens. We have 29 laps complete as Terry Boutsen comes at you down the hill in the blue and yellow Williams car. Gerhard Berger just behind. There is Patrese and Mansell. Coming up on one of the faster sections of the racetrack, the cars hit maximum speeds of about 150 miles an hour. No straightaway really worthy of the name except on the pit section, the start-finish line.
This group that coming up to lap now is Guljamin and Piro, Donnelly, Suzuki, and Caffey all struggling around there, and Michele Alboreto. They're going to catch up with this group any moment now.
Now we finally have gotten our onboard cameras up on the Ferraris. There you're looking out the back of Alain Prost's machine. Derek Warwick nowhere in sight. So there's a big gap back to the 11th place car. In fact, over 10 seconds.
Derek Warwick is nearly 15 seconds behind Alain Prost.
Listen to that Ferrari V12 work and keep an eye on that left side tire and watch the shadings change as he makes his way around this dirty racetrack. Triple layer of wings on these cars. They're running tremendous downforce at the back of the car. Hoping to keep that car nailed to the road.
Coming up onto the corner, leading onto the pit straight.
You can hear how close together those gears are and how quickly they can shift with that semi-automatic Ferrari gearbox.
Well, of course, the Ferrari, the other advantage of that semi-automatic is, of course, they've got 7 speeds instead of 6, which just obviously helps on the power band.
This is the 3rd and 4th place war. Patrese, and once again we have a lap car in between, and again it's one of the Ligets. Boutsen there. With 30 laps complete, 38 will mark the halfway point of the race. Now the Ligier moves over. Patrese dives underneath, followed immediately by Mansell. I think he has a notion this time around.
I think he's got him right in the sights now. They've got a lot of traffic to get through here, too. That looks like one of the arrows just in front of Thierry Boutsen now. Nigel Mansell setting up or lining up Patrese for what he hopes will be the pass at the end of the straight. It's going to be difficult. Patrese doing a bit of surreptitious weaving there to pull him off, and doesn't do it that time. These cars are so evenly matched, it's just not a case of pulling up and whistling around people. Thierry Boutsen going to the inside there of Alex Caffey. I believe that's Caffey. It's one of the arrows anyway. Oh, Nigel getting a good old... That's where he did the pass last year, and that's where yesterday afternoon we saw the two McLarens have the most similar slides to that while they were attempting their qualifying. Well, boy, he did well to hang on to that. That's a quick corner, that. Downhill in fifth gear. Well, changing up to fifth. Probably, 130 odd mile an hour. Michele Alboreto in that arrow, as it is.
And you don't want to be looking out the side of your car at the roadway.
That's Mansell for a year. He's long right.
Coming up behind Mansell quickly, you got a blur, the green blur of Sandro Nannini.
Sandro Nannini, who they had successfully dropped off behind them to the tune of 6 or 7 seconds, now suddenly, with all this traffic, has caught right up to them. But of course, he too has got to get through the traffic. So,
after Nannini's second-place finish in Germany, after leading for much of that race 2 weeks ago, his father, a baker back in Italy, gave free pastries out to everybody who came into his store. Very proud of young Sandro. We'll be back live to the packed Hungaroring in just a moment. And near the center of Budapest is a tall column, capped by a statue of the Archangel Gabriel, which tradition says appeared to the first king of Hungary, King Stefan, to appeal to him to make his nation Christian. It's the centerpiece of the Heroes Square. The chariots of war and of peace top the colonnades, and in between are 14 statues representing great heroes from 1,000 years of Hungarian history. It was originally built as a part of the Millennium Exhibition in 1896. At least it was started in 1896, but political squabbles kept it from being finished until 1929. In the center of the plaza is a mausoleum, a tomb, and a memorial to the unknown soldier of all Hungarian wars. Budapest is one of the greenest and most beautiful and friendliest of all the European capitals we visit here on the ESPN Formula One Tour, and we are very happy to be here live to bring you the 5th running of the Hungarian Formula One Grand Prix. There is your leader, Thierry Boutsen, and there is the second-placed red and white McLaren of Gerhard Berger of Austria.
I think just before these two guys get embroiled, we do have to say that it is the most wonderful downtown city with some great old buildings, and anybody that wants a trip to Eastern Europe, I couldn't recommend it enough. It's an absolutely superb city. And these guys are having a superb race.
Third and fourth place cars of Riccardo Patrese and Nigel Mansell coming through your screen. That's how close together the leaders are. Looking out the back now of Alain Prost's Ferrari.
And I suspect that right behind him now could be Ayrton Senna. Oh, that's Alesi.
Jean Alesi. We saw Satoru Nakajima go off earlier. It is Alesi now hammering at Alain Prost in 7th place.
And just behind Alesi now, 6 seconds behind, the fact is Ayrton Senna, who got around Derek Warwick. And again, Ayrton Senna's the one who's setting the pace. He's in the low 23s. Everybody else is lapping 24s and 25. So he's making ground up very fast. But he has to get around Alesi again. And then, of course, he's got to get around his arch enemy, Albert Prost.
Right now, Senna does not stand to be hurt by the results of this race. Prost is 7th. That means no points for him. He'll have to get by Nelson Piquet to get into that 6th and final points-paying position. 9 for 1st, 6 for 2nd, 4 for 3rd, 3 for 4th, 2 for 5th, and 1 point for 6th place. Senna leads Prost by 4 points for the World Championship coming in. In the last 2 races, they have swapped the lead in the World Championship. More lap traffic looms ahead. This is Alex Caffey in the arrows. And Thierry Boutsen puts him away with a neat move, and more importantly, lodges Caffey between himself and the second-place McLaren of Gerhard Berger. Here comes Berger now.
everybody getting very, very mixed up here, because as we've said, it's not easy for these lap cars to get offline, and of course the lead cars are very loath to go around the outside or too close to the inside of the track to get around the lap traffic, because they don't want to go offline either. And the reason they don't want to go offline is because this track is very dusty and very gritty, and they pick up the dust which could last for a couple of laps. Mansell really giving Patrese a hard time now as they come up to get around Alex Caffey into the chicane. So we immediately go off that and watch the leaders again,
who have more lap traffic in front of them. There's one of the LaRousse cars.
And that's Emanuele Pirro, I guess, in the Dallara in front of them, in him.
Pit lane rumor here in Hungary says that the Lamborghini team, or the Lamborghini factory in Italy, has run out of money to do further development on that V12 engine.
Nannini now, right at the back of the picture there. Nannini, as you can see, right up with Nigel Mansell. So anybody makes the slightest gap in this traffic, and these positions could change dramatically.
7, 8 cars all running together as they come onto the front straight. Nigel with his nose right up underneath the rear wing of Riccardo Patrese. We may see an attempt this time around. Now Patrese quickly opens up more room, but he's got Caffey to deal with, and Patrese is offline.
Ooh, and so is Nigel going down the inside there. Now they've got to get around the LaRousse and Emanuele Pirro. Nannini stayed right with these two. There he is in the Benetton. Down to this fast right-hand sweep. And
here comes Mansell. At the same place he tried to pass and did Ayrton Senna last year. He will not get it done on Patrese this time.
Woo. Outside pass that left-hander, no thanks. Nannini now having a go at Nigel. This is where Nannini was so fast earlier on, when he was right behind Senna.
Nice tactical drift there by Patrese to block.
Is that Alesi?
That is.
No,
that's Stefano Modena getting out of the Brabham. With an engine fire, according to the way he got out, I would guess he thought there was a hot time coming. Sandro Nannini and Nelson Piquet have both signed new contracts for next year. They'll be back with the Benetton team and a new sponsor. The Camel Company will leave Lotus and will bring heavy sponsorship money, as you take a look there at Emanuele Pirro, to the Benetton team.
Ooh, around the outside there, that's a bit dodgy, but he has to do it. Patrese managed to put quite a bit of daylight and some cars between himself now and Nigel Mansell. That would be giving him a little bit of a breather there, just for a little bit. Meanwhile, of course, the LaRousse and Pirro are racing for position, and so all this traffic is not helping their little private race.
There goes the LaRousse down the inside. Mansell will wait. Pirro moves over, got very close. Here comes Mansell coming through behind.
This is where we saw Nakajima last year at Bash Wheels, if you remember, on the same sort of position, right in that same corner.
37 laps complete. The next time by, we will be at the halfway point of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Alain Prost is out of the Ferrari. Prost has evidently spun off and gotten out of the Ferrari. And there's Pierluigi Martini locked together with Jean Alesi. There's another replay in fast forward. What a development. Prost is out of the car, and that will be great news for Senna, who is now up into 6th position.
22 seconds behind Alessandro Nannini. Now that looked like a pretty serious bit of traffic squabbling there, and hopefully we will see it again. Oh, yeah.
Martini tangling with Alesi, and Senna just squeaking by. Locked wheels. That is at the climbing turn.
Well, what happened to Prost? Was he in that then? I didn't see him then.
Didn't see Prost in that one, and Prost's car did not look damaged, but keep in mind, if he lost the flame in the engine, you're not allowed to restart it.
Well, they could restart it if they could find a way of doing it. Oh, here we go. This is Prost. Maybe we're going to see it from on board.
Not very well.
Oop.
Locked him up and bounced off.
Going on to the pit straight.
Right near the start-finish line, at the back of the starting grid.
Well, most un-Prost-like. It looked, we couldn't see out the front, so we don't know what was in front of him, but it's not like him to spin like that.
Nobody got him from behind.
Boy, now Prost will be ticked off at that, because he was 4 seconds behind going into this race, 4 points behind, and if Senna finishes, that's going to dent his chances.
Right now, Senna has a lot of ground to make up. He is 20 seconds behind the 5th place Benetton of Sandro Nannini. The drama continues here in Hungary. Stay with us. We're back live at the 5th Grand Prix of Hungary. Bob Barcia and David Hobbs with you. Terry Boutsen is your leader. Gerhard Berger second. Let's get down to the pit lane now for John Visignano and a race update.
Well,
until lap 40, we only had 3 cars out of this race, and now we have some 7. Let's bring you up to date quickly. The Brabham of Modena went out with a very bad engine blow right here in front of his pits. The Tyrrell of Nakajima, he crashed out of the race. The Delara with Andrea de Cesaris, of course, that motor went away also. And on lap 40, lightning struck here in the Hungaro ring. Prost spun off at the very last corner right before the pit entrance. Alisi and Martini locked wheels, and Suzuki and Lolola came in with the back end of the car totally in flames, engulfing the whole pit lane in a thick black smoke. So lap 40 was not good luck for most people, but the Ferrari team, they may be ready for a pit stop. We'll keep you updated.
All right, thank you, John. You got to look there at Nigel Mansell, presently running in the 4th position behind Boutsen, Berger, Riccardo Patrese. Behind Mansell in 5th place is Sandro Nannini, and Ayrton Senna has pulled that McLaren, the spare car, up into the 6th spot.
But he is still around about 20 seconds behind Nannini, so he's got his work cut out to score more points yet. Now these two guys here have got an awful lot of pressure on them. Thierry Boutsen desperately wants to stay with Williams, but is definitely on the firing line. And Gerhard Berger hasn't delivered quite what everybody thought he would deliver in a McLaren. And both these guys really want to win this race for more reasons than just winning a race.
After last year's race, in which the McLarens had another troubled weekend, they tested at this racetrack and said they picked up 2.5 seconds per lap. So we'll see whether any of that information will carry over this year.
Paolo Barilla there in the Minardi, letting them through. Yeah, lets them go through. Berger loses just a fraction of time there.
Terry Boutsen, he's really on a roll. All the drivers held a radio-controlled car race on Friday night, and Boutsen won that.
Well, maybe it's a harbinger of things to come. Patrese and Mansell still locked in, and there's Nannini right behind in an extremely close 5th spot. So the first 5 cars here covered by just over 3 seconds.
41 laps complete. We are past halfway. Ayrton Senna has chopped another second off the deficit from 6th to 5th. 12 cars of the 26 starters remain on the lead lap. Boutsen, Berger, Patrese, Mansell, Nannini, Senna, Piquet, Warwick, Bernard, Capelli, Gugelmin, and Martin Donnelly.
You see that race for 3rd and 4th. Hard, aggressive driving, the order of the day here in Hungary. Pushing your way through the traffic. Absolutely having to steel yourself to maintain the position you've got, and or hopefully improve it. And no let up for a second in this traffic. Great deal of concentration, tremendous concentration required, and extreme physical effort on the part of these drivers as they weave in and out of this traffic.
There you see Berger with a huge contingent of Austrians here on the stands. Lots of rumors flying that Austria may reappear on the Formula One schedule in future years, but the tentative schedule, and Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone insists it is tentative only, have the entire 1990 schedule intact. The same 16 races, a few date changes, but the same order of events beginning in Phoenix next March and continuing through Adelaide, Australia in November.
There's the race for 3rd and 4th. Patrese followed very closely by Nigel Mansell. Now all these 4 leaders, or 5 leaders, Nannini is right there just behind, are about to lap Martin Donnelly, which is going to cause more heartache and grief. Martin Donnelly just going out of the picture there, flashing across the screen, and there is Boutsen and Berger and Patrese and Mansell. Very fast flick, that left-hander there. 5th gear, we were standing there the other day, if you remember. All these cars dragging the floor as they go through there, pushed down with a huge downforce these cars develop, and they were all going through there at the most impossible-looking speed, standing at the side of the road.
If I remember, I thought Senna was going to present me with his McLaren at one point, coming over the guardrail.
Well, you did wimp out a bit and kept stepping back, and I kept saying it's all right, they know what they're doing, but you weren't listening. Coming up to lap Donnelly and Gugelmin in the Leighton House. The Leighton House having one of their usual tremendously up and down weekends.
Patrese, Mansell, and Nannini, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, having a great battle here. And closing up on Berger. We may have the top 5 cars running nose to tail here in another moment.
fuel load going away. They've got to this stage now. This is where Nigel seems to be extremely quick. Is he going to make a try going to this left-hander? Boy, taken.
Looked like he was going to feint to the inside, but he had to know Patrese is not watching his mirrors at that point. There's Alain Prost, who spun out of the race. Cesare Fiorio, who runs the team, to his left. Made his name running the Lancia Rally team in World Rally Championship competition before coming over to Ferrari.
Which, of course, is all under the umbrella of Fiat now. Ferrari, Fiat, Lancia, and Alfa Romeo, all owned by the Agnelli controlled Fiat group.
Once again, Nigel Mansell closes up on the gearbox of Riccardo Patrese. There is Boutsen, Berger, Patrese, and there is Mansell. On to the pit straightaway. The best passing point on the racetrack coming up. Let's see if Mansell takes a shot. He's too far back, it would appear.
There's no doubt that the Renault engine in those Williams cars seems to be a match for anything now. They're a 10-cylinder, and they've done work on them all the time. They develop them more and more, and they do seem to be extracting a lot of horsepower out of that 10-cylinder Renault engine.
I think Nigel may have a notion at his favorite passing point here. He creeps right up on Patrese, and this is where Nigel likes to pass.
He comes through that corner so fast, it gives them a slingshot as they come up the straight. It's just that this here, that left-hand flick, is not a particularly good overtaking spot. And Patrese seems to be slightly quicker through the corner than Nigel, so maybe it's not the place, but Nigel is definitely quicker through that right-hander as they go on to that long straight. I say long, it's not a very long straight. None of the straights here are very long.
None of them are very straight either.
No, that's the other thing. We talk about this being a 15-corner racetrack, but if you take into account all the little subtle swerves and swoops, there's actually probably 17 or 18 changes of direction.
The Hungaroring has been a great racetrack for the Williams team. They have won here twice before, Nelson Piquet winning in 1986 and 87, and they would desperately like to pick up another victory today. Once again, Nigel Mansell right there behind Riccardo Patrese.
Risk of losing downforce as they go around that corner, but as they go along this top straight, I think that Patrese actually pulls out on Ferrari, even though the Ferrari has that one extra gear, which probably should help its acceleration down that straight.
Time as Mansell approaches his favorite passing spot, and once again he appears to be a little bit further adrift this time, and that will give him no chance as they approach the quick left-hand flick. Terry Boutsen remains your leader with 45 laps complete, followed by Berger, Patrese, Mansell, Nannini, and Senna. Stay with us. We'll be back to Hungary. Back live at the Grand Prix of Hungary, where Terry Boutsen, originally born in Belgium, looks well on his way to victory, and that will make him a huge hero when we come to you in 2 weeks, August 26th at 7:50 a.m. Eastern Time with the Formula One Grand Prix of Belgium from the incredibly fast Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Our top 10 are Terry Boutsen with 46 laps complete of 77 scheduled, Gerhard Berger, Riccardo Patrese, Nigel Mansell, Sandro Nannini, and Ayrton Senna in the points-paying positions. 7th is Nelson Piquet, Derek Warwick 8th, Eric Bernard 9th, Yvon Capelli is 10th. Behind Capelli is his teammate Maurizio Gugelmin. As the battle continues, Nigel Mansell still all over Riccardo Patrese, but as David has been pointing out, they are very evenly matched. Mansell just not able to get around.
Now you see, if we have this long camera shot again, the racetrack now is starting to get even more dusty and dirty than it was before. You can see all the grey stuff to the left and the right of the picture there, the little marbles of rolled up rubber. And one of the problems that Nigel must have following Patrese now at this close range is that a lot of that dust and rolled up rubber is being thrown back onto Nigel, and especially into his radiator. So he wants to be a bit careful. It's a very hot day today, and that could lead to a problem. Get the old rad gummed up with rubber, and it's not easy to get out. Going past Derek Warwick, I think that was.
Now that would be Martin Donnelly, the 12th and last car.
That's just exactly what Thierry Boutsen wanted, and just exactly what Gerhard Berger did not want. Lap traffic between himself and the leader, just coming into this very typical twisty spot.
Look how quickly Patrese and Mansell in the yellow and red cars close up on Gerhard Berger. Up the hill.
Oh, Berger's going to pit.
Berger will pit for the McLaren team. They are ready. John Bizignano is standing by.
I think Berger's front tires are shot. I noticed he went very wide coming out of the pit straight last time.
Here's John Bizignano.
David, we'll take a look at those front tires. Gerhard Berger very roughly comes into his stopping position. You're absolutely right. The fronts are totally rooted. This is much smoother than the edge and center spot. Get it in gear, Gerhard. Get it in gear. Come on. Fighting with that first gear. He had it in third or fourth, tried to pull away. Nothing happened. Luckily, he didn't kill it. And then laid rubber in a strong first gear all the way down the pit lane. David, you're absolutely right. Front tires absolutely rooted. Very quick pit stop by the McLaren. Perfect McLaren crew.
Wow. Now then.
More perfect than they were a few weeks ago. Let's put it that way.
I just noticed on that one of those last high shots, he went awfully wide with the front end of the car. Obviously had an understeer problem coming onto the pit straight. But of course now that puts the Williams in a 1-2 position. Old Frank Williams will be sitting there in the pits, really biting his fingernails now.
That could be great news for the Williams team. If they can finish first and second, they are fourth in the manufacturer's points coming into this race, just one behind Benetton. They could leap up with a combined 1-2 finish there. 9 points for first, 6 for second. Would give them 15 points on the day.
Well, with 48 laps out of 77, it is certainly too early to start talking about victories and this sort of thing, but it certainly has been. There's everybody going pretty wide as they come off onto that pit straight there.
Ricardo Patrese dealing with the yellow Lotus of Martin Donnelly. A lot of concern here about what's going to happen to the Lotus team. Rumors of management changes, possibly selling the team.
Well, I mean, it's quite true. There's a tremendous amount of rumor, and of course the rumor really has got foundation because they have lost their major sponsor. And I mean, I guess you're looking at somewhere in the region of close to $10 million a year. And that's a lot of money to just find from another sponsor.
Patrese and Mansell doing battle mano-a-mano for third position. Speaking of budgets, the Brabham team is saying they're in a very tight financial situation. They thought they could do the season for £5 or $6 million. Turns out it's costing them the equivalent of $2 million a month to run the Formula One season.
And their owners, Middlebridge, have run into some other problems. The owner has been forced to buy a car for £10 million, a race-winning Bentley of the 30s, which he had balked at. He bought it through Christie's or one of the auction houses. He's had to fork up for that money, and they have other financial problems as well. But right now, financial problems aren't high on these guys' agenda. Their agenda is to win this race, which of course does ultimately lead to very nice financial problems, like how much tax are we going to pay. Nigel giving Patrese here a tremendous run, and Nannini hanging right in there with him. Nannini, of course, with the new Ford V8, which I believe revs to 13,000 RPM, which I can tell you for a 3.5-litre V8 is an awful lot of RPM. And there is Senna, has managed to catch up with that group. Senna now only 2 seconds behind that group and consistently turning in faster laps than anybody else. But of course, catching them up and getting around them on this circuit in particular is something else.
Senna has moved up into 5th. Gerhard Berger, who was running 2nd, then had that long pit stop, has dropped back to 6th, 21 seconds behind his teammate.
Now, of course, these guys are not going to be looking in their mirrors for anybody coming up to catch him.
Well, Berger may be 21 seconds down, but he is really making hay while the sun shines. He has just cut fast lap, 1:22.687. And he has plenty of time still to come. 50 laps are complete, 27 laps still remain, so Gerhard Berger can get back into this. He's still
he can certainly get back well into the points because he's got brand new tires and lost more than half of his fuel load. So he's in good shape now to turn some very fast laps. There's Senna. Also on newish tires, comparatively speaking to these guys, who of course did the bulk of their running on full tank, so their tires had a much harder time than even Senna.
Last year it was Nigel Mansell coming from 12th to 1st. This year it may be Ayrton Senna coming from 10th to win in Hungary, but he's got a long way to go.
And a lot of people have passed, and a lot of awfully good people have passed. There's Thierry, gets another lucky break there.
Going around Mauricio Gugelmin in that aqua-colored Leighton House car.
And one of the Ligiers.
Has one of the Ligiers there behind him too. That may be Nicola Larini. Ooh, Mansell tried the inside in this very tight downhill left-hander on Petrese. Mansell starting to get a little impatient back there in fourth. A third make that.
Well, I'm sure that if he could get round Petrese, he would definitely pull away. But, of course, Petrese ain't about to let him around in Sunshine. And it's just up to him to get round. And it's terribly, terribly difficult. I find it difficult to pass back markers, level only on Racegate.
There you see the Benetton of Sandro Nannini making his way around, catching up to Nigel Mansell. Riccardo Petrese protecting his teammate Terry Boutsen in the lead. No return to Hungary. We're back at the Grand Prix of Hungary, coming to you live from the Hungaroring, just outside Budapest. Bob Barsh with David Hobbs and John Bizignano with you. We'd like to extend special greetings to John's father, Babe Bizignano, recovering from major surgery at Mercy Hospital in Des Moines. Babe, if you're watching, John's doing a great job, and we hope you're feeling a lot better. Now, just a moment ago, we had some tremendous passing action on the front straight.
Nannini pulls out to pass Nigel Mansell. Nigel forces him over onto the very dirty, slippery side of the track. You can see there's very little rubber been put down there, just dust. But Nannini sticks it out, goes down the inside. Senna has thoughts about following him, decides against it, but just follow them through this corner and watch what happens as they go down between turn 1 and turn 2. Senna hangs right in there. Nigel's tyres are obviously about shot. Senna feints one side and just nails him down the inside, giving himself another flat spot. How bad's that going to be as the race progresses? There's a bit of a lock-up. Shouldn't have given him too much of a flat spot. So Babe's recovering in hospital, and we're all recovering in here. It's pretty exciting, I tell you.
And Nigel's recovering in the cockpit of the Ferrari. Your leader is Terry Boutsen. Little Petrese second, then Sandro Nannini third, Ayrton Senna fourth, Nigel Mansell fifth.
And look for a pit stop, John, from Nigel Mansell. Boy, that was all pretty exciting. It's just typical, isn't it? The way whenever we go to commercial, something always breaks. There's nothing we can do about it, folks. That's just the way the dice roll, but it is quite extraordinary. As soon as the music played us out, then all this action broke out on the front straight. And Nannini has now come up to give his countryman, Riccardo Petrese, an extremely hard time. That V8 engine Benetton giving a very good display today amongst all these V10 and V12 engine cars. I mean, he really hung on to Nige down the straight, which was the hard bit. But I think maybe Nigel's car, quite frankly, is not as good on the straight as it might be, because there was no way that he could hold Petrese on the straight. And it would appear that either his car or that engine is just not quite au point today.
Au point, indeed. 54 laps complete.
They'll have to vet the situation when they get back to the factory.
Speak English. Boutsen in the lead, Petrese right there, Nannini right there, Senna right behind him. Mansell runs in fifth, and Gerhard Berger is quickly closing in fifth. He was 21 seconds back in sixth before. He is now just 2 seconds behind Nigel Mansell for fifth.
Of course, in all that schmozzle there, all that passing, repassing, lapping, pit stopping, etc., of course, has done a tremendous amount to take a huge weight off the shoulders of our leader, Thierry Boutsen, who now is enjoying an absolutely vast lead of nearly 5 seconds.
Those of you who watched our coverage of the German Grand Prix 2 weeks ago know that Sandro Nannini led much of that race until tires went off late in the race and he could not hold off Ayrton Senna. Those two protagonists are right here in the middle of this battle. The multicolored car in the middle is Nannini, Senna in the red and white car behind him.
Senna doing a bit of lane changing there. No, Nigel Mansell still hanging on too, not coming to change his tires.
And to the right of your screen, that is Gerhard Berger, who had a very long pit stop, fell way back, but has come charging through. Now Nannini looks underneath Petrese and takes it.
But Petrese quickly slams the door on Senna, who in turn has been caught again by Nigel Mansell.
Senna will try the inside as he did on Mansell a few laps ago, and he will take over third.
How come he can drive down that bit of track that nobody else drives on all day? They keep complaining about the track being slippery, and he seems to just drive down there.
Now Mansell will try Petrese. Ooh, and he takes Mansell right to the side of the racetrack.
A bit of real locking that he went on then.
Petrese has a long history of being difficult to pass. One man's protection of his teammates' lead is another man's diabolical move to hold up the guys behind him. Petrese is a master of both.
And look at Berger, right back in the picture. Brand new tyres, so look for Berger to whistle by these two guys in fairly short order. It's not going to be easy, but he should be able to accomplish it.
Too bad we never get any passing in Formula One.
I know, it's a terrible shame. It's a pretty Chris Economaki's not here. Well, the trouble is these guys never pass.
See how much goes on later on when the stock cars go to Watkins Glen. Patrese sliding wide down there in the hairpin. Now Mansell will look up the inside, and Patrese will pit. Ricardo Patrese will head for the Williams pit. His tires must be shot. Nigel Mansell moves through to take over the 4th position again. Gerhard Berger now up to 5th. We'll see how quickly the Williams team can get Ricardo Patrese back out on the racetrack. There you see them hard at work.
Tires and wheels pretty hot to the touch. There you see it from on board. Tracy drops the clutch and goes. These pit stops just frighten the heck out of me. I tell you, all those thousands of people standing around those damn great donut tires, whistling within centimeters. Now we see him pull out in front of the 2 Lotuses. He's not about to let those 2 guys get in front of him, though. He's got serious business on hand. He does not want to be held up by those Lotuses.
There is Gerhard Berger, the trucking company's son, born in Vienna, Austria. We've told the story before about the tremendous car accident that nearly killed Gerhard Berger and certainly would have ended his Formula One career, but that the next car that happened on the scene of the accident was occupied by a pair of doctors who not only saved his life, they saved his career.
There we see him Mansell through that little right-hand flick, coming up this long left-hander.
Coming around to finish lap 57. 20 laps remain for that man. Your leader, Terry Boutsen, will be back to Hungary.
I don't know. It was done 20 years ago. I have no idea. No, I done myself when I was racing go-kart.
Well, that explains a lot about Nelson Piquet's helmet job. One of the most colorful in Formula One.
Tracy there getting a bit of a twitch on, and again...
No, that's Terry Boutsen, that's our leader.
Sorry, Terry. Terry getting a bit of a twitch on.
His teammate, Ricardo Patrese, has already had to pit for tires, so Terry Boutsen, it stands to reason, the evidence seems to be that he may be having trouble with 20 laps remaining in the Hungarian Grand Prix. Here's John Bizignano in the pit lane.
It's very unusual when Alain Prost goes off track, and there's usually a good reason when he does. The gearbox was giving him problems. He was coming up the hill just before the long straightaway, and bango, the thing stays in gear, and bango, the engine goes away from him, spreading oil all over his back wheels. Alain Prost wanted points here more than any other race this year. Ayrton Senna, the gentleman ahead of him, is out there doing well. Also, David, you were talking about how much gunk is all over these drivers. The last 2 drivers in these pits have been absolutely covered, and all the tearaways are gone now. We've been out there for an hour and a half. They have to be driving half blind if they're following someone for an extended period of time. Not a comfortable feeling, I would think.
A most unpleasant feeling, not one of those I like myself. As we see Zach Gerhard Berger trying to get around one of the Leighton House cars. Here we see the end of that long par straight. Down the hill, up the hill. Mansell, closely followed by Berger. And not so very far behind Ayrton Senna, who really has not made much of an impression on Alessandro Nannini. He's still over a second behind him.
We saw the Leighton House car of Mauricio Gugelmin allowing Mr. Berger to go by. It is Boutsen, Nannini, Senna, Mansell, Berger, and Piquet in the top 6. Ricardo Patrese had a quick off on his new tires, and pretty inexplicably. And he now is running further back. He is in 8th position. Derek Warwick is in the number 6 spot with the Lotus.
Is that, that's Terry Boutsen? He looked like he was going slowly there to me, just slightly off the pace, perhaps not.
There goes Ayrton Senna, presently in 3rd, having worked his way back from mid-pack. Senna with Nannini closing in slowly. 60 laps are now in. 17 remain. There goes Nannini. Here comes Senna in 3rd. There is Mansell in 4th. There is Berger in 5th.
All these guys now remaining incredibly evenly spaced, finding it very hard to make any impression one way or the other on each other. I must say I'm a little bit surprised. I thought Berger would be in better shape than the others.
9 cars of 26 starters remain on the lead lap. 15 cars remain in the race.
I'm sure at this stage, tactics are taking a back seat. I don't think any of these guys are biding their time, as it were, to get by, because knowing how difficult it is to get by here at the Hungaroring, if they can get by, they'll capitalize and do it.
We rather expected everybody's lap time to decrease as the race went on. We mentioned this is a very dirty circuit, not a lot of rubber down, and as the rubber built up during the course of the race and the fuel load lightened, we expected these cars to go a lot faster. Hasn't been the case here today.
And look how close Alessandro Nannini is now to Thierry Boutsen, right up with him. The V8 engine, the Ford V8 versus the Renault V10 versus the Honda V10 versus the Ferrari V12.
There will be another V10 engine combination in Formula One next year. The Dallara team has signed exclusive rights to the new John Judd-built V10 engine they expect to have next year. We saw Senna working the steering wheel there.
Everybody's working the steering wheel pretty hard this afternoon. He comes into that turn one. Nigel gives a bit of a bobble going to turn one. All these guys, their tyres are definitely, I'm sure that Nigel's fighting a losing battle here with his tyres. He seems to be hanging right in there, but I think he's finding it very, very hard work. The Renault pulls out a little bit of a lead there. Not much on Alessandro Nannini.
The top 5 cars running nose to tail here in the waning laps of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Mansell trying to hold off Gerhard Berger for 4th place. There, Nannini and Senna pull right up behind the yellow and blue Williams of Thierry Boutsen, who has led this race from the pole, from the green light.
Thierry's tyres probably seriously going off, but then they will be on the other 2 cars as well. Well, not the other 2, because Senna has got fresh-ish rubber on his car.
Senna stopped in the first 20 laps.
Now, you remember at Germany just 2 weeks ago what a struggle Senna had to get past Nannini, and the Benetton-Ford combination really is showing some serious competitive qualities at the moment.
Paolo Barilla in the minority leads the pack, and so they will have to get around him. They will catch him at just the most treacherous corner.
There's your lead 5 cars. You can cover them all with a blanket, and Berger tries to go down the inside, locks up.
Locks up and may have touched Nigel. We saw the nose move quick left and right.
Wings look all right. The front wing looks okay. That's the suspect part, of course.
I guess Nigel is fighting a defensive battle at this point.
Nigel, of course, really needs to win a race. He went to Ferrari last year. He won the very first event for them last year in Rio, but hasn't had a great deal of luck. And this year he has yet to win a race. And of course, teammate Alan Prost has won 4 races.
Mansell, of course, is also the defending champion here in Hungary. 62 laps complete, 63 this time around. I thought they would have caught Barilla by now.
The pace, as you say, has dropped amazingly. They're all lapping in the 24s and the 25s, whereas they were down to the 23s and 22s. Last year's lap record is at 122, and I really would have thought that they would have been lapping probably in the 20s by now.
The lapped car of Paolo Barilla will lead the top 5 machines in this race onto the front straightaway. We'll take a quick timeout. You won't miss anything. The last 14 laps of this one should be spectacular. Back live in the waning laps of the Hungarian Grand Prix. 63 laps are in the books, 14 remain, and just a moment ago we had great drama. Coming down the start-finish straightaway, watch the back of your picture. Gerhard Berger inside Nigel Mansell, drives him all the way across the pit exit, but Berger holds him off, completes the pass. Now keep watching, because here comes Nigel Mansell right back in the Ferrari.
For some reason or other, Berger drops off a lot of speed there. Whether he selected the wrong gear or what, I don't know. But he held a good tight line and let Mansell go around the outside, who streaks off into the distance. But then, up at the top of the hill, we have even more drama. As we go back to our leaders there, we see Mansell still pulling away from Gerhard Berger. We're not quite sure yet what happened to Berger.
Now watch the 4th car on your screen. Ayrton Senna went down the inside of the chicane and tangled wheels with Sandro Nannini, knocking him 5 feet in the air and sideways in that chicane.
And somehow the Ferrari of Mansell and the other one missed him completely, Berger. Probably bent the car a bit on that takeoff and landing. I just can't see how it wouldn't have done. He must be fuming, because that really was, I'm afraid, whichever way you look at it, Senna really, he would have known he was going to protect himself, that Nannini was going to protect himself. But, you know, with just a few laps left, you've got to get round them guys somehow. I suppose you're going to try anything. Very, very lucky that he's still in the race.
Well, certainly Ayrton Senna knows chicanes after the incident last year in the Japanese Grand Prix when he came together with Alain Prost and the World Championship was decided. Up on point. Paolo Barilla in the minority, being lapped now.
And of course, all of this action takes pressure off Thierry Boutsen, but not for long. Senna right with Thierry Boutsen now.
Then two lap cars, then this man, Nigel Mansell, now in third.
Who was incredibly lucky to get away without hitting Nannini there, both he and Berger, when Nannini spun back across the track. If I was Senna at this stage, I'd be just a little bit worried, especially coming to this long right-hander, about the efficacy of my left front wheel. Took a lot of a hit there from Nannini.
12 laps to go. 11 to go next time by. Boutsen has led from the get-go here in Hungary. Senna pitted early for tires, dropped back to 10th, and then worked his way forward. He is now in second. Nigel Mansell runs in third. Gerhard Berger also stopped for tires. He runs fourth. Nelson Piquet is now fifth, following his teammate Sandro Nannini's retirement. Ricardo Patrese is now back up to sixth after his stop.
I can't understand what happened to Berger after that last pass at Mansell. He must either got the wrong gear or something has gone wrong with his car, because he's caught up again now. Now let's see the relative V10 power down the straight here, the Renault in front and the Honda behind. The Honda definitely quicker down that straight. And Senna quicker into the corner. Now,
I think the Williams has been quicker off the corners, though, in the low revs, low gears. 11 laps remain. There is Berger closing in on Mansell. The top four cars running nose to tail once again. This is the lead pair. Here comes third and fourth. Fifth place Piquet is 11 seconds behind. Patrese 17 seconds down in sixth.
A bit of a quandary here, because of all the Grand Prix drivers out there, Thierry Boutsen is one of the very few drivers who genuinely likes Ayrton Senna. They are quite close friends. So I think Senna will be a bit doubtful about actually punting his pal off the track, but if the win's a win, isn't it?
Well, he could certainly do his friend a great favor here. A victory for Boutsen. It might be Boutsen's job next year and several $1 million in salary. Berger getting way wide down there in the hairpin. He's having a little trouble with directional control. 10 laps remain, this time by. Berger got very wide and obviously lost ground to Nigel Mansell. The top four cars are all on your screen.
Senna very quick at the end of that straight and into turn one. Loses a little bit of it as they work their way through this 1 and 2 complex.
Thierry Boutsen's wife, Patricia, no doubt watching back home in Belgium. As is, I'm sure, Ayrton Senna's girlfriend, Zusa, back in Brazil. Let's get a comment from John in the pit lane.
We tried to talk to Alessandro Nannini, and obviously he was displaying a little bit of Italian emotion. You can't blame him for that, fellas. He did not want to speak to us live, but he said what happened. He was following very closely with Boutsen. He felt that on the next couple laps he could have taken Boutsen easily when Senna booted him off the track, according to him, and he bent his left front suspension. He could not continue. Again, I have to point out, David, the point that you made earlier. These cars, I've never seen cars so dirty. They are absolutely covered. The driver's visors are covered. We have 10 laps to go, but that adds up to some 12 or 14 minutes. It's going to be a grueling last 15 minutes of the Hungarian Grand Prix, excuse me.
At the Hungara ring, and as you can see, the sun's going down, the shadows are lengthening, so when they come round this corner in particular, they're facing right into the sun, so if their visors are a little bit obscured, makes life very difficult.
Gerhard Berger will make another run at Nigel Mansell. These last 10 laps should be spectacular. We'll take a quick time out, and somebody will make a pass. See you in a minute. Back live to the Hungaro ring Nürburgring, just outside Budapest, Hungary, in the 5th running of the Hungarian Grand Prix, and believe it or not, while you were away, nothing happened. Except 2 more laps have gone in the book. 69 are now complete, 8 laps remain. Your leader is Terry Boutsen, as he has from the green light. Ayrton Senna has made his way back to 2nd place, where he runs now ahead of Nigel Mansell and Gerhard Berger. Nelson Piquet in 5th, and Riccardo Patrese in 6th are more than 15 seconds back.
Ayrton Senna there, unbelievably quick into a couple of these corners. Must be just giving those brakes of his a very, very hard time, but it's managing to keep him right up with Thierry Boutsen. Mansell hanging on what I've got to consider must be suspect tires. Berger, he must have lost a gear or more. There's got to be some explanation for him not being able to capitalize on that earlier chance he got round Mansell. He just doesn't seem to be able to hang on to them. So I think he's got a problem with his gearbox.
We have witnessed 4 incredible drives by all 4 of the cars in your screen. Boutsen, Senna, Mansell, and Berger. Whatever happens, all of these guys have had to come back from great adversity.
They've all taken a lot of chances with traffic. Senna had that bump with Nannini, which was extremely unfortunate. You know, if you're going to apportion blame, I suppose you'd have to say it was Senna's fault. But, I mean, you know, these things just do happen in racing. I mean, people do run into each other. It's very, very difficult when you're doing 77 laps around here to be that precise that you don't hit people.
And averaging over 100 miles an hour while doing it with very, very many slow, tight turns and chicanes. Once again, these Formula One cars are mechanical marvels, accelerating enormously quickly and stopping unbelievably quickly.
Yes, it's hard to relate this to a street car, but your average Chevrolet Caprice, for example, probably accelerates to 60 miles an hour in about 10 seconds. In 10 seconds, these guys go from 0 to 160 and halfway back to 0 again. So, fairly lively animal under the old right foot. Mansell coming on now, starting to really press Senna again.
8 cars remain on the lead lap. The tail ender is Eric Bernard of the Larousse.
I'm sure that Thierry Boutsen is holding up the pace a little bit here, but then of course he is controlling the race. If he drives very carefully here and uses all the road and the right bits of road, he can control the pace to a large extent, which is going to bunch these cars up even more than they are at the moment.
71 laps down, 6 remain. Boutsen, Senna, Mansell, and Berger.
If Thierry wins this, it'll certainly be one of the great victories in Formula One, because he's had to stand tremendous pressure all afternoon, and will sort of put to the lie the theory that Thierry cannot win races. Plus, I do believe it'll give him that impetus like it gave Nigel. Nigel raced for 6 years in Formula One before he won a race, 5 years before he won a race, and having won it, he suddenly was absolutely away with the mix, and down the inside goes Berger, and exactly the same thing befalls Mansell as befell Nannini. Nigel will be hot, because he considers Berger to be a friend of his. He was a bit upset when Berger pushed him off the road at Imola, where you unfortunately were not. And his strongest criticism was that it was his friend who had done it. Well, his friend's done it again.
And his former teammate at Ferrari.
Tremendous temptation to overtake going into a chicane. I can tell you from years of experience, it just looks right. I mean, there's this horrible gap open to you. It says, come in, my boy, come into this nice open bit of road. And of course, the other guy wants it.
They had that great passing duel in Mexico earlier this year. Now, suddenly, Terry Boutsen slides away from Ayrton Senna to some degree, and you didn't see Gerhard Berger at the back of your picture, so he might well be off the racetrack as well. Nope, there is Berger going very slowly. Is he in the pit lane? Yes, he is.
Front suspension a bit deranged. Doesn't look too bad.
Gerhard Berger will head for the McLaren pits, where a new nose apparently awaits him. John Bisognano is there.
We are all kinds of things flying around the McLaren pit. Gerhard Berger coming in very slowly, looking down. I thought he was going to undo his seatbelts for him. He has undone the seatbelts. Gerhard Berger getting out of the car. This mighty V10 Honda roaring for the last time here in Hungary, and Gerhard Berger is out of the Hungarian Grand Prix. That's the drink tube that he's trying to clear off of his helmet. He cannot get fully out of the car until the drink tube is disconnected. Gerhard Berger trying very hard, maybe a little bit too hard, and one of the MP4 McLarens has retired here in Hungary.
Now we're looking at a replay as Nigel Mansell gets knocked sideways off. He is obviously off the racetrack. It'd be a shame if one of the greatest races we've seen in a number of years, and certainly one of the great races in a great season of Formula One, to be marred by a couple of accidents like that.
That's going to be a very black mark against Gerhard Berger, too, for his next year's negotiating situation. I believe he's sure with McLaren, but if he's not, that won't have done his chances any good.
Meanwhile, the battle continues up front with 4 laps remaining. Terry Boutsen trying to hold off his friend, Ayrton Senna. Although, as we've seen twice on the racetrack today, friendship does not go a long way when there's a Grand Prix victory at stake. Quickly, the Williams-Renault moves away from the McLaren with 3 laps remaining. Stay with us. Back live at the Hungaroring, where the third-place car of Nelson Piquet goes around the lap machine of Paolo Barilla. Up front, it remains Terry Boutsen and Ayrton Senna duking it out for the victory here with 3 laps to go. There'll be 2 to go next time past the start-finish line. Boutsen didn't help his cause by putting a wheel off just a moment ago.
Just a little bit of an off, but showing once again how slippery this track is. The time still hovering around the 24 to 26, 1 minute 24, 1 minute 25 second mark, which is definitely off the pace that we would have expected here this afternoon.
We may get a little more metaphorical. Terry Boutsen is recognized as one of the great nice guys in Formula One. Ayrton Senna, as many of you fans know, wears a bit of a black hat in this series. And so
now he's very close now. This is where Senna's hot and strong at the end of the straight, too.
Boutsen goes over to hold him off.
Thierry saying to himself, just hang back. But of course, that worst situation of all coming up now to lapped traffic.
As they approach the lapped car, I believe that's Tarquini up ahead in the AGS. Let's get a comment from John Visignano.
Bob, the reason Gerhard Berger left the Austrian, the Austrian Gerhard Berger left the Hungarian Grand Prix was damaged suspension. Coming together with Nigel Mansell, this is not the first time they've been together this year. I'm afraid after this race, there's certainly going to be some discussion between those 2 top Formula One drivers.
Now then, the thing is Senna going to try that kamikaze overtaking the chicane trick again? I suspect not. I mean, if I was him, I would certainly settle for a safe 6 points here, which second will generate, especially as his arch rival Prost is not going to score any. But on the other hand, these guys don't want to give up any points because this year is obviously going to be tough right down to the wire.
Gabriele Tarquini, who hasn't raced much in Formula One. The AGS team has had a lot of trouble qualifying, and right now he has the leaders coming up behind him.
And he's just doing the worst absolute possible job on Thierry Boutsen he possibly could.
Last lap. We will begin the last lap right now.
This is the part where Senna is so strong. Towards the end of this straight, he's very quick into turn 1 and very quick at the end of the straight. But luckily for Thierry, Tarquini does a bit of a block there for him. He couldn't go to the outside, which I think he might have been tempted to do. But Tarquini's car had not been there. Down to that very fast right-hand street where Nigel did that amazing pass on Senna last year. Thierry keeping his head as they swing to this very fast left-hander.
Just 10 turns separate Terry Boutsen from a possible 3rd Grand Prix victory, and even more important, a victory in a heads-up fight with Ayrton Senna. This is where Senna knocked off Riccardo Patrese.
Don't think he's about to do that to Thierry Boutsen, not in this stage of the race. Too risky. I mean, it's obviously too much risk involved. You do what Berger did to his car and break your own car as well. These are not stock cars. Is that right, Bubba?
You bet, Jim Bob, Joe David.
Bubba and the boys on later on this afternoon as we come up to the last 3 corners here in the Hungaroring and more lap traffic. I would say Mr. Boutsen at home might just about be having another baby now.
If Senna's going to get him, he's got to get him now. Boutsen swings a little wide. The checkered flag awaits. He gets sideways off the corner, but it looks as though Terry Boutsen will take his 3rd victory here at the Hungaroring. 3rd career Formula One win, and he may have earned himself a ride with the Williams team next year. And his friend Ayrton Senna pulls alongside. There is Nelson Piquet, who will finish 3rd. What a day here in Hungary.
What a great day for the Williams boys, too. Front row, locked up for themselves. Patrese faded after that stop. We saw him while we were in break, of course. We saw him have a minor spin.
I need to correct something. I said that Senna came together with Patrese. He actually came together with Nannini, who is, of course, Nelson Piquet's teammate. Boutsen, Senna, Piquet. Riccardo Patrese will come home in 4th for Williams. There is a happy Terry Boutsen, and rightfully so. Derek Warwick will finish 5th. Well-earned points for the Englishman, who's had a tough season with Lotus. And Eric Bernard will pick up a championship point for the Roos team. Martin Donnelly will finish 7th, Maurizio Gugelmin 8th, Alex Caffey 9th, and Emanuele Pirro 10th. 6 cars, all of the point scorers finish on the same lap. What a race. We'll step away for a moment and come back to sum things up from here in Hungary. Back live at the Hungaroring, where the 77 laps of the 5th Hungarian Grand Prix are now history, and they were exciting laps indeed. Another look here at Ayrton Senna's collision with Sandro Nannini that damaged the Italian's left front wheel and knocked the Benetton out of the race. However, there was some solace for Benetton in that Nelson Piquet came home 3rd. Here's a look at all of the cars as we have them for the official results. Terry Boutsen over Ayrton Senna, followed by Nelson Piquet, Riccardo Patrese, Derek Warwick, and Eric Bernard to fill out the points-paying positions. All those cars on the lead lap. Martin Donnelly, Maurizio Gugelmin, Alex Caffey, and Emanuele Pirro finished the top 10. Your next 7, Nicola Marini, Michele Alboreto, Gabriele Tarquini, Felipe Ayo, Paolo Barilla, Gerhard Berger finishes 5 laps down in 16th position, and Nigel Mansell, who also went off in a collision, 6 laps down, officially 17th place. Fast lap of the race went to Riccardo Patrese. We'll be back in a moment with a final word from Hungary. It's time for us to say farewell to beautiful and brave Budapest, Hungary, born of 3 cities unified in 1873, Budapest and Óbuda. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of Hungary has been brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is one tough motor oil. By Pirelli Tires, original equipment on the world's finest automobiles. And by Wrangler, the most comfortable jeans known to man. Back at the Hungaroring, the celebration has begun in Victory Lane, the 3rd career victory for Terry Boutsen. As a result of today's race, here are how the points look. Ayrton Senna, with that 2nd place finish, is up to 54, a fat 10-point margin over Alain Prost, who did not finish the race. Gerhard Berger is 3rd with 29. Terry Boutsen moves up into a sole possession of 4th with 27 points, followed by Nelson Piquet. In manufacturer's points, McLaren Honda now with 83 to 57 for poor Ferrari. Williams comes home now in 3rd with 42, replacing Benetton, who now has 35. We hope that you've enjoyed today's race and that you'll enjoy the next round, coming to you from Terry Boutsen's homeland, Belgium. Spa-Francorchamps circuit, August 26th will be the Belgian Grand Prix live at 7:50 a.m. Eastern Time. And after today's race, I'm sure you won't want to miss that. I'm Bob Barsha.